Hey everybody, thank you so much for coming on the call today. I want to honor everyone's time and ensure that we're done right at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we're going to start right away. Here's what we've done. I've invited a few people to join this call as panelists. So you'll see them on your screens right now if you are on your computers or on your phones. If you're calling in, obviously you'll just have audio here. And the reason I've invited the panelists is, Alan George from Life.Church, he's going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to ministry and technology and how to minister and all of that. And I'm sure lots of you will have questions. Now, at this point, the last I checked, I think we were at 120 or so people registered, which, Alan, I don't get because my plan with Zoom only lets 100 people on. So maybe it's God's favor. Who knows? We'll just take what we get, right? Yeah, so which is awesome. And then we're also live streaming on Facebook. So obviously we can't take everybody's questions, but my hope is the panelists that are on will sort of listen to some of your answers and the counsel you're giving us, and we'll have specific questions based on their networks and based on their church and where they're at right now. Hope that makes sense. And also, panelists, if I can ask you guys to just put yourselves on mute, unless, of course, you want to speak, that would help. You guys can see Casey on there. That's Kimon Clunas, who's my assistant. She's on there just to help moderate the questions that come in, etc. So for everyone watching, just a couple of quick tips. If you're not used to Zoom, if you're on your computer, at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A button. So click on the Q&A button, and that will help you ask questions. You can ask questions even as Alan is talking. And we're having discussion, and towards the end, maybe the last 15 minutes, we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. There's also a chat box where you can, just comment on stuff, like if the connection's not good, audio's not working, something like that, use the chat box there to message us, okay? If you're on your phone, I think the Q&A should be very visible, but the chat box is probably, you have to hit the participant icon and then it'll give you the chat option. So with that, I'm going to start off in prayer, and then I'm going to introduce the panelists, and then we're going to get Alan to do a quick intro. Father, we thank you for the times that we are living in. Father, globally, the church is experiencing, leaders around the world, in churches around the world, are experiencing, Lord, a new way, a new method to do ministry. And Father, as challenging as it may be, and maybe even stressful and frustrating for many of us that have never had to deal with the online world and ministering online, Father, we also thank you for the great opportunity that it is, Father, to reach more people on a Sunday than we've ever been able to reach through our buildings. And so, Father, would you give us wisdom and insight? I pray for every pastor, every leader, people that are watching from Africa, people that are watching from the Caribbean right now. I pray that you will give us grace to go through this season and excel in leadership through the season, and also give us wisdom and insight, Lord, how to position our churches, our leaders, our teams, Father, our technology, to leverage this monumental opportunity that you've given us to reach the world online. So we thank you for everyone that's on the call. I pray for Alan. We thank you for Life.Church. We thank you for Craig Rochelle. We thank you for their leadership team and all the years that they've invested and built a platform and a technology, Lord, that we can now leverage so easily to take the gospel into all the world. So thank you for this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Awesome. Okay, let me introduce the panelists. We have Pastor Ron Binda, who is in national leadership with the Church of God here in Canada and even in the US as well. He was just telling me yesterday, we were on the phone about some major cancellations, stadium events that have had to be canceled for the Church of God over this last few days, and millions of dollars at stake. So, I mean, just incredible challenges that they're facing. But Pastor Ron is connected to so many leaders across our city in the Toronto area and also into the US. So Pastor Ron, thank you for being on the call with us today. Then we have Bishop Woodrow Thompson. Bishop Thompson is the administrative bishop of the Church of God of Prophecy. And there's a lot of churches. How many churches is that, Bishop, in Canada?
32.
32 churches that
in
you
the
oversee
East, yeah.
in the Eastern Canada. And obviously, again, connections in Jamaica and the US, etc. And so thank you for being on the call. Then we have Pastor Brendan Witten. Pastor Brendan is the senior pastor of Toronto City Church, and he's also on the executive leadership team at the Open Bible Fellowship of Churches. OBFF, I think, has about, I don't know, a few hundred credential holders, Brendan, all across Canada. And very influential organization. And so he's going to give us some perspective from there. And then we have Pastor Chantel Beresford from Serve City Church. Now, Pastor Chantel and her husband, Pastor Andrew, co-pastor a church called Serve City, and it's a newer church plant, a couple of years. They're part of the ARC movement. And so I wanted them to share from a new church plant perspective, because for a lot of us, you know, we're like, yeah, these people have been in our churches for 20 years or 15 years. But for them, it's a 2-year-old church, and it's a major transition and a major change. So I want to hear some questions from her on just what it's like for them and how they're going to leverage technology to reach their people as well. So with that, I want to turn it over. So here's what we're going to do, by the way. I'm going to ask Pastor Brendan to facilitate the discussion, just because in the last 6 minutes, I've had a million calls and text messages coming in already. So I want to sort of try to talk to people as we're on the call as well. So Pastor Brendan's going to facilitate the discussion time, and I'll jump in at the end when we do the Q&As. With that, I want to turn it over to Alan. Alan, are you still there? Maybe not. Hold on. Let me just, yeah, I think Alan is off. Wow.
Yeah, I was
okay,
going to
Brendan,
say.
do you have wisdom for us on online ministry? Because, yeah, let me see.
We just lost our main guy.
We lost our main guy, people. So hold on. I'm just texting him here. There, I think he's just back. Alan, there you are. Bro, I was like, I had nothing prepared for online ministry. I was going to wing it right there, bro.
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to get on, and maybe somebody kicked me out or something. I don't know where I went.
Yeah,
but I'm back.
So we've got 115 people right now on the call. And then on Facebook, we've got a bunch of people watching live as well. So Alan, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to do a quick introduction. Wow, we have 185 people registered, guys. So Zoom is being very generous with us today, so which is great. So Alan, give us a quick introduction of yourself, Life.Church, what you've done for the last 14 years, because I just heard you say that on a Facebook Live the other day. Church Online, the platform, and all of that, and then we'll just jump into a discussion on best practices.
Sure. Yes, so my name is Alan George. Finu and I go way back. I'm originally from India, born and raised in Bahrain, moved to the US in 2004. We were part of Life.Church. Life.Church is 24 years old now. We're a multi-site church, and about 14 years ago, we launched this concept of what would it be like to do church online. And the idea was more than just streaming content, because a lot of us were doing that at this time. But the idea was, instead of just streaming content, how can we foster community? If we have a church service, you can loosely define it as there's got to be worship, there's got to be teaching of the word of God, but there's also got to be community. And so if we can create and leverage technology in such a way that that community can happen, well, then we now have an opportunity to be evangelistic like never before, where we can reach people that maybe no one else is reaching. And so this was the heart. And ever since we launched it, obviously, we've wanted to equip other churches as well, which is why we've always been giving away the Church Online platform completely free. And so this is definitely an interesting season for us as well. One of the questions that people ask me is like, hey, you're the Church Online pastor, so this is like your world. Yes and no, because just because we're on Church Online doesn't mean that we don't want to meet people face to face. Like, we're not saying this is better than physical church or anything like that. We're just saying, let's leverage every tool we have to share the gospel. And whether you're Church Online or face to face, there is something powerful about being able to sit with someone and have a conversation with them. But if that's not possible, let's do this. Let's have Zoom calls and do whatever we can to connect with people.
Awesome. So, and tell us a little bit also about what's happened over this last weekend, just so everyone that's just joining the call can get a sense of what you guys are dealing with.
Sure. Yeah. Here in the U.S. and I think in certain parts of the world, obviously in the U.S. we've been asked to close down all of our physical locations, and so the way church was happening in our physical locations, not just at Life.Church but across the U.S., has changed this past weekend. And so since Saturday, we've had over 10,000 churches say, we need help. We need to sign up for this platform because now we're shifting our services. Because again, church doesn't have to be closed. We're just changing the venue. What used to be in our physical building is now online. So that's happening across churches. For us at Life.Church, we have 35 locations. And so we've transitioned all of those to meet online. And so we've created additional services. We already have about 90 services every single week. And we've got people from all over the world because obviously we want to hit different time zones and things like that. So that's where we're at right now.
That's amazing. So I want to make a couple of just quick comments just to get the word out as well. Friends, if you are on Zoom, if you can share the Facebook live stream, that would really help us just get the word out. So just go to Missional Media Services on Facebook and you'll see the live stream there. Just click share and let's just get more people on this live stream as well. Pastor Brandon, I'm going to turn it over to you from now on, and just you see the topics we want to talk about. So let's just cue Alan with some questions, and then panel, anytime you want to talk, unmute yourself and jump in.
Yeah. All right. Well, good afternoon, Finu. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Alan and fellow panelists. Obviously, I don't know that any of us saw this time coming, but I think we're all working together. So I'm really excited just to be part of this conversation. I just want to get back to Alan. And Alan, I'll just kind of spark a question here. You can just share with us, and fellow panelists, just feel free to jump in when you need to as well. But I guess you said, Alan, one of the things you guys have really been working on, obviously, all of us are trying to figure out engaging with online ministry right now. And there's some different elements of that we're working on. But obviously a main portion of today, we wanted to talk about how do we go beyond just putting out some content to really connecting with people. So maybe can you just share a little bit of your guys' journey with that? And just what are some of the things you've really found are effective to connect with people?
Yeah, great question. So just to give you a little history, my background, I wasn't doing technology. I really didn't come from that industry at all. I came from being one of the pastors in one of our physical locations at Life.Church. And so I remember I've been in this role now for almost 10 years. And I remember when my first week in this new church online concept for me, I was thinking, man, I have to redo everything. I have to change everything. And I was nervous. I had all these questions. So I understand a little bit what that feels like. But what I found out was the principles, the heart, the why behind what we do has stayed the same. My lobby has changed. My church lobby has changed. But the way I want to care for people, the way I want to talk to people, the way I want to pray for people, the way I want to be available and present for them, the way I want to get resources into, all of those continue to stay the same. It's just we accomplish it a different way. And so my thought process, my suggestion for anyone is, as you think about your church service or the current ministry that you're already doing, what is it that you do right now? How can we transition that to this online space? So for example, if you are a church that has greeters, you like welcoming people as they walk into your doors, you can have that same spirit, that same heart present in your services, because the technology allows that. You've got chat, you can welcome people. If you want to offer prayer, even in the middle of church, at the end of church, whatever it might be, you can do that as well. And so without going into specifics, you can do most of what you're doing in a physical location online. And now because it's online, you have the added benefit of you can do even more. So I'll give you another example. If someone comes to one of our services, depending on the size of your church, there's a possibility that they can slip in and leave without you knowing anything about them. with it being online, you actually know who's coming, you know where they're coming from, you know how long they've stayed, and you can also give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, talk to them in the middle of church. So as we think about those things where maybe we say, hey, don't talk in the middle of service. Well, now you can talk in the middle of service if you want to, because there might be a worship song where people are listening. And again, we're all probably getting messages from people in our community saying they're going through a tough time, they're struggling. So you never know, like in that worship song or that moment when the pastor is preaching that message, they may have a question, they may have a doubt, maybe they want prayer. They realize that God's been working on them and they want prayer right now. Well, we as a church don't have to wait for the end of the service or even the end of the week to be able to pray for them. We can pray for them right then and there. Hopefully that answers a little bit of your question.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely does, and already starts tapping into some good things. So obviously you've talked a little bit about within the service context and ways like greeting, engaging in conversation with people. I think you're right. There's really maybe some new avenues that most of us haven't thought of because we're used to telling people to be quiet in church. I think one of the other major concerns that most of us pastors and leaders will have are not just community within the service, even though we can double back to talk about more, but it's also just community as a whole. Because you feel really, you feel real handcuffed because we're used to most of it being face-to-face contact. So what are some things you guys have done to create community outside of the weekend worship experience?
Sure. A lot of it starts from the service. So if we have guests that are joining us for the first time, we invite them to either fill out a form or let us know who they are so that we can touch base with them during the week. We also have a Facebook group. So you've probably heard about a Facebook page and a Facebook group. The way I view the difference between a page and a group is a page is kind of like you're in front of your house inviting people or saying hi to people that are walking down the street. A Facebook group is where you invite them into your living room. So it's a little bit more of a controlled space, and the way that space functions is more like a small group or a life group, and you may have a lot of people in that group, but again, it's a smaller place. That Facebook group can be open or closed. So for example, you can post questions there every day. You can have people on your team or within the church scheduled to do devotionals daily. You can even have people get on like a Zoom call or a Facebook Live to do prayer time. One of our most successful Facebook posts in the middle of the week is a simple question that says, how can we pray for you? We've got hundreds of people that will just pour their heart out because they want somebody to stand with them in prayer. And even if people come from a different religion, they're typically open to us saying, can I pray for you? And they usually say, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pray for me. And so I think you can have devotionals, you can have prayer time, you can leverage the YouVersion Bible plan. We've got plans with friends. And so you can create a smaller group. So you can invite maybe your small group leaders to start small groups online, either through YouVersion, through the WhatsApp app. You can do Facebook Messenger. Yeah. We've not really said you have to pick a particular platform, because just like face-to-face groups, we don't say you have to meet in your home. If you have the opportunity to meet at a coffee shop or a home or an office space, we encourage that. In the same way, maybe you're comfortable on WhatsApp or Facebook or wherever. And so giving them the freedom and then the resources of, hey, this week's message was this, here are some questions that you could be talking about. And so empowering them, releasing them, and giving them the opportunity to do that. And again, we don't have the bank to all the innovation, but I would say this, we talk about it a lot. Whenever we experience this kind of constraint, this kind of thing happening where we're restricted, that's typically when innovation happens. And so I believe that as churches all over the world, we're going to come up with innovative ideas in the midst of this constraint, because now we're forced to think differently. And so I really am excited to see all the different concepts and ideas that will benefit the church as a whole in the days to come.
Awesome. No, that's some really good stuff. I'll just turn the attention out of what's been said so far. If any of our fellow panelists have a question or something they particularly wanted to chip in.
I just want to make a couple of quick comments. One, some of you, I'm getting emails saying that what I thought was Zoom's generosity doesn't sound like it is, because it seems Zoom's basically saying, you know, we've got 100 people on, so 115 is what I see, and you can't log in. So again, if you know people that are not able to log in, to send them to Facebook so they can watch the live stream. And also everyone that registered, which is now almost 200 people, will get the recording as well sent to them after the fact. Alan, just a couple of things. One, you sort of refer to this idea of volunteers connecting, etc. I want to make sure, Brendan, that we unpack volunteer engagement. I think that's really, really critical. Lots of churches are like, you know, usually we do a Sunday morning huddle, right? Okay, guys, service is coming. Let's get prayed. Let's get ready. Now it's like, what's our huddle online? Like, what does that even look like, right? And this is a little bit of a curveball for you, Alan, but I've got someone that just asked a question about what if we're not tech savvy, we're a bunch of seniors and we're on the phone. So any engagement tips? And I'm just asking this question now because you talked about engagement online. So any engagement tips, even for like a conference call idea or setting?
Absolutely. It's funny because like I mentioned, I'm from India. When my mom would visit from India, she'd move here to the US. She didn't really know a lot of people. And so she found this conference call. And if you're from the Indian community, I think you pretty much are aware of this. But essentially, there's this senior population of people that are from India that get on multiple different conference calls throughout the week, and they literally have church on the phone. So if you can imagine grandparents that are here, that moved here just because their kids are here, whatever, they didn't have community. And so rather than just waiting for that Sunday service, they would do this constantly. And so I would see my mom nonstop on the phone and be like, Mom, who are you talking to? It's like, no, this is my prayer line. It's my prayer line. And they have fellowship. They talk to each other. They know each other. They share prayer requests. So I think it's a brilliant idea for a church or people to have conference calls where multiple people can come in and they essentially have a service. So it's kind of funny. It's not like professional musicians or singers, like literally you have grandpas and grandmas just singing and it sounds horrible, but they love it. And this is their community and they're having a blast. And then they'll schedule someone to share the word. And so then they'll have that. And then they'll have prayer time where people can just unmute their phone and share their prayer requests. So I think that's a brilliant idea. Something else I've seen our campus pastors do is that they have that list of people who are elderly and they've been making individual calls and saying, how are you doing? Can we bring you something? Are you able to get your groceries? If not, we can bring them for you. And so I think it's, again, an opportunity for us, the church, again, making sure we're being safe and using all the precautionary things that we need to, that we're able to still meet the needs of our community. So absolutely, I think the phone idea is amazing.
Excellent. Okay, so that was there. I think I'm just trying to make sure did we touch on did you touch on the volunteer engagement piece too?
No, I didn't. And I can explain that. So years ago, when we had just one or two services, it was our staff that was leading all of those services. We realized that as people were joining us from different time zones and different places, we wanted to add more services so that more people could connect. Now, I'll pause and say this. When I say service, what I mean is this is different from on-demand content. So on-demand content is when you go to a page, you hit play based on your availability, and it starts playing from the start. When I talk about this service, it's basically if you're 5 minutes late, you've missed the first 5 minutes of the service. And so we like the idea of scheduled services because it's just like your physical church where everyone comes at that same time together. So as we started adding services, we realized that we as a staff, we're not going to keep hiring people just to do this. There are people that want to volunteer their time and they want to be used by God. So we opened this up for our volunteers, and we've had people signing up and volunteering. Now, different churches do this differently. I'll share how we do it. If you are volunteering with Life.Church online, you have to go through a background process. It is a little bit time consuming, but we want to make sure that if we are empowering or equipping a leader to represent us, we want to make sure that we do the necessary things that we have to do to make sure that they are the right people representing us. So if you're in the US, we do a background check. If you live outside of the US, we have our own process where you have to have an interview, multiple people that will vouch for who you are, your church, etc. So with volunteers, we now have created a volunteer structure so that volunteers can lead these services. And as the volunteer teams grew bigger, we created leadership structures. So you've got people leading people, leading people. Right now, all of our 90 services are all led and completely covered by a volunteer team. It's about 700 volunteers from like 55 different countries. So it is a great opportunity for people all over the world to come together and be a part of this.
Awesome. I'll just open. I know Chantel. I'm not sure. I saw you kind of going. Maybe you
Yeah.
had a question there. So jump on in.
My question is, how much is too much engagement online? Like, everyone right now, notifications are going wild. The last couple of days, everyone's streaming, everyone's doing prayer, everyone's doing, especially on Sunday, there'll be 10,000 plus potential churches going online this past weekend. Is it too much to always be like in the morning doing prayer, in the evening doing prayer, doing like online worship service and service? Like, what's too much?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When I think about, say, 10,000 churches that launched this past week, I'm thinking, while that does seem like a large number, we have obviously 7 billion or more people alive on earth. And so when you compare those two, there's still, even in this moment, in this high technology moment, there's still people who have not heard the gospel yet. And so I lean towards the side where let's just give it everything we've got, because the world is not slowing down. There's no business or online influencer that's thinking, man, I don't want to I don't want to bombard people with my content. People are actually increasing their posts from 2 posts a day to 4 posts to 6 posts because they want to get in front of as many people as possible. And so we as a church, I think we need to make sure that we're not afraid of this. People have the option to either listen to us or not. It's a little bit more difficult to get up and walk out of a physical church and leave in the middle of service. If they don't want to listen to us, they will close the window. But you just never know when someone needs help. I've got, I think, just story after story where somehow somebody shared something and they happened to show up in one of our services. And they had, even recently, there was a guy that wrote a suicide note. And he said, I'm just going to go one last time online just in case there's hope. And obviously, that this guy wants hope. He's searching for hope. And somehow he showed up at one of our services, gave his life to Christ. The guy's alive today because we had that service at that time. So we have 90 services, but there's 168 hours in the week. So we have gaps. And so let's get as many churches, as many people as we can. Now, the caveat to this is, in one service, obviously, if chat is flying, that can be a tough experience. That can be, a little different. So I think that's when you got to get creative with, hey, can we all show up at a certain time? And if there are peaks services, should we as a church meet at an off-peak time so that we can be more evangelistic? So I think that is up to the leadership of the church and how they want to navigate that. But that's a great question.
Can I ask another question, a follow-up? What is online asking for giving online etiquette? Being direct by putting your text to give number on your social media platforms, as well as maybe in the comment below while you're streaming online. Is it a tactful way to do this, or to present it to our people that are watching us?
Yeah, what I've found is that whatever you currently do in your church right now, you should just mirror that, because they're used to that. And I will say this, I said this yesterday to somebody as well. My pet peeve, or one of my pet peeves, is when people say, oh yeah, you got to make sure you do your announcements. Because some people have this model where you have the senior pastor. That's how it is in our church. You have the senior pastor that's teaching, and then you have our campus pastors who pastor the local community, or in my case, it would be our online family. And so they may even talk to our physical location, say, oh yeah, this is like time for announcements, right? It's not announcement time. This is not where you step into announcement mode. This is when you step into that pastoral mode. And the church, our community, they're looking to us for leadership. In fact, I have my regular Bible plan that I'm reading, but as all of this started happening, I just pivoted. I felt like starting back on Acts again. And this morning I was reading Acts chapter 2, and you see this point where the Spirit of God falls on people, and then in verse 14 you see, then Peter stood up with the 11, raised his voice, and addressed the crowd. You see Peter stepping into that leadership moment, that pastoral moment. In times like this, as pastors, God's calling us to step up and lead strong with boldness. This is not a time where we get nervous or figure, oh man, I don't know what to do. You just need to stand up and trust that when you stand up and speak, God will speak to you. So
Amen.
When it comes to giving, be honest. I mean, we're not saying, again, God is in control. He is our provider. And what we've been doing is we've been telling in our context, obviously it's the generosity of our church that we're able to give the platform away. And so what I did, and you'll see it this weekend, is one, I want to thank those of you who have been generous. It's because of your generosity. I share how you're making a difference. For others of you who've never taken that step before, I want to encourage you, take that step right now. Allow God to use you. Some of you are saying that I want to be used. How can I help? You can help by tithing. Start right now and allow God to use you. And then I pray. So we're leaning into it. Again, the caveat there is if you have a digital platform where giving is part of it, then it's easier for you. If you don't, then you have to navigate that. But in our case, majority of our giving already comes through digital. So that's how we've been addressing it.
I just have, I want to make a couple of comments, Brandon and Alan, before we continue. So lots of people asking, and I get it. Some of you are on this call because you're like, they're going to tell me what camera to buy from Best Buy, right? And they're going to tell me what cables to hook up. That's not the purpose for this specific call. And there's too much information to share with that. And it's very specific to where you're at, what you have right now, currently have, and what you need to purchase. So that's something, by the way, when I send you the emails with the recordings, if you want to reply to that and ask specific questions, we'll try to resource you. I want to remind you that part of what we do here at Passion to Reach Ministries is we help churches with media. So we'll help you set up websites. I've had, in the last 2 days, I've had 50 calls from literally all over the US and Canada for people asking for a website. They don't even have a website. They don't have social media channels. They have so some of you are listening to all this and saying, well, I don't have anything set up yet. So we can deal with that after. Today, we want to deal with ministry through technology. And so what does the ministry element of it look like? That's really what we're trying to talk about. And again, Alan's church has been generous with this platform called the Church Online Platform. Is that correct, Alan? Church Online Platform. So if you Google Church Online Platform Life.Church, you will find their platform. It's completely free. And again, if you need help setting it up, we're more than willing to help with that as well. So I just wanted to make that comment because I'm getting a lot of messages on that. So just so everyone's on the same page. Brandon.
And Finu, we've got blog posts up as well that go into detail, like kids resources, getting starting with church online equipment, launch your services weekend. So we have blog posts available as well that I can share the link to if that's helpful. In fact, I can throw it in chat right now. That way you guys see it.
Yeah, you could do that, Brendan. So, Alan, if you look at your chat, and maybe Alan can post some of the links when he's not talking. Alan, I don't want you to be distracted either. Yeah, he's posted it right there to everyone. So if you look at your chat, that would be the link to check out after we're done with this call. So, great.
Good.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Pastor Ron.
Yes. Alan, what are some of the best practices that you can use? Because for many people, this is maybe, they've never done this before. This is the first time they're going to be going online. And as you mentioned, you've been bombarded by many churches and pastors contacting you, tens of thousands of churches are online. And so I think it would be helpful to hear about some of the best practices that, you know, your church uses, your group uses, that we can learn from.
Absolutely. Pastor Ron, just for clarity, do you have specifics on best practices in a specific area, or?
Basically for example, doing an online service. You mentioned, for example, announcements, which is something that you know, we're getting that church mode and we
Sure.
have to do announcements. So
So,
things
yeah,
like that.
Alan, just add
service.
context to what Pastor Ron's saying. Okay, I speak at churches all over Toronto. There are literally churches where this person will come up with a book or a binder.
Yeah.
And they will take 10 minutes to go page after page. And I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we're talking about going from there to
Sure.
now doing announcements online completely.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge transition.
Yeah, and that part where I was talking about lead into, you know, it's not announcements. We have announcements as well. We do it with with videos and things like that. So I'm not saying we don't have announcements. I think sometimes when we get on camera, we can feel like I just need to update people. I just need to give them those updates. And maybe you have a different person to do that. But as a pastor, my encouragement is to lean into that pastoral moment rather than switch to that announcement gear. But in terms of like the service format, I especially with this already being a big switch from what your community might be used to, I would say create the same format. So we have changed things obviously because of what's going on, but typically when you come to an online service, it's the exact same format that you will experience in our physical locations. And part of that thinking is it's kind of like Starbucks. Any Starbucks you go to anywhere in the world, it's very similar. It's the same culture, it's the same feel, the same experience. So as much as we can be a mirror to what is happening in our physical locations, that's what we strive for. And so if you have announcements, now obviously you may have to find creative ways based on who is presenting that if you don't have that many video options. On the Church Online platform, there is a section for notes. So you've got a public chat, and there are these sub tabs at the bottom. And so you'll have chat, you have the Bible, you have notes. So you can leverage that notes feature to pre-populate the announcements for that week. And even on camera, you can say, hey, for our announcements this week, I want you to click the notes tab right now, and you'll see what's coming up. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat. And so speaking directly to that camera, speaking directly to that person, it's a little bit of a different format just because it may be like this. And so helping them navigate that screen and navigate the platform that they're on for the first time would absolutely be beneficial. Being friendly, being available. Now, if you have someone that is causing a ruckus, the platform does give you the ability to mute them. You can do that in chat as well. So that's possible. There's also—
You can't do that at church. So that's one benefit of online.
You'd have to walk them out. You just click a button. And you also have live prayer. So there's another button that says live prayer where you can click that button, and then a different chat window opens up for one-on-one. There's also a give button. So you can link that to your website, to whatever giving website you have. So that way people can click that. And so maybe during that portion, when you talk about giving, you can say, and for us to give right now, you'll see a button right over there. I'd love for you to click that button, and together we can be generous, or however you want to communicate that. We also have like host. It's geared for Life.Church, but we have host training that we have for our volunteers that I'll be happy to share with you, Finu, so you can share that. It's Life.Church, but it'll give you a general idea of how we communicate. I'll say this: it's good to have resources. So if someone says, I need prayer for depression, or I need prayer for healing, it's good to have a one-sheeter with links to specific verses or things like that. So you're empowering and resourcing your volunteer team to be equipped in that moment.
So you want to cut down the length of your service. Online, for example, if your service is an hour and a half, what would be your recommendation? Because you're online, sometimes you're having time limits. on certain platforms. I mean, obviously you'd be taking note of that, but is there, a recommendation from, you have this experience, this is something that you're, an expert in. Would you recommend to churches, look, hey, don't have a 2-hour service or just an hour and a half, or the sermon should be 15 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes? What have you found is the best way to handle some of these types of, areas in the service?
That's a great question. We actually navigated this a few years back where we saw people consuming shorter pieces of content, and we trimmed our service. So our service is an hour and 5 minutes. And so we thought, man, instead of 4 songs, should we just do 1 song and a short snippet of the message? And really our regular attendees felt like they were robbed of being at church. They said, we came in wanting to be at church, and what happened to church? Like, what happened to the rest of the service? And so we also realized that in this time where people are consuming small snippets, they're also binge watching whole seasons on Netflix. And so it's not like they don't want to spend 3 hours watching their favorite show. They will. And so I think, again, that would be a case-by-case scenario of, does your content translate? Is it engaging? It does force us to really look at every minute that's happening. Because sometimes what we can say in 10 minutes, we take 30 minutes to say. And so it just depends on the economy of words and the quality of the content and all of that. So I think this will, in a good way, force us to look at every moment, so that every moment that someone's online, it's engaging, it's keeping them connected. And if it's not, we don't need to have it. If there's a way to bypass something and use like the notes feature or something like that, well, then let's do that. Maybe we did a song during giving because we needed time for that offering plate to get through all of the different aisles. Well, now we don't need that. So then do we need the song? And so, or do we position giving in a different place? So you may find the opportunity to reformat the service, which I think is absolutely fine. And our community will understand it, as long as they don't feel like this is like a 5-minute version of church, when this is my hope. This is what I've been waiting for. I miss coming to my church. And so we don't want to rob our people from that experience either.
Excellent. I just want to, Pastor Chantel, did you have something else that you wanted to throw in there?
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask a question about, a lot of pastors have never spoke online before, or even volunteers or greeters or even worship. And how do you boost confidence that you don't have that you might not have a flawless service? Is it okay to be authentic in yourself and have bloopers? Because this is new for so many people. People have never had a YouTube channel before. If you're a YouTuber, you're very comfortable speaking in front of a camera with no one in the audience. Can you speak into just confidence of, like, it's okay to be yourself, kind of?
I don't know if I'm the right person, because I don't think I still have that, even though I've been doing this for a bit. I remember the first time I did it, it took me like 3 hours to do like a 15-minute piece. Last night, my family, just with the kids, my wife and I wanted to do an Instagram live, and the kids were like, we want to be in it. And so I have like 12, 10, and 5. And so they literally just were in the video. And my oldest at the end said, Daddy, you messed up so many times. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, baby, that's just an example that God can use imperfect people. That's okay. So let me be proof that God can use someone like me. I do think that there is something authentic about those little hiccups. I guess everybody at my church is going to see it this weekend, but I was praying for, like, during the time, so I'm on camera, I'm praying for giving. I cannot redo it because it's in the middle of worship. So if I have to redo my portion, the whole worship set has to redo this. So I'm saying, God, I just thank you for everybody that's with us, that's on their mobile devices and their telephones. And then in my head, I'm going, who's on it? What telephone? Did I just say the word telephone? Nobody's on a telephone. We're on cell. And so all of this is happening in my mind. I was like, I mean, whatever, oh God, yeah, whatever devices. And I just laughed it off. And I hope that communicates authenticity. And if we're looking at proof for that, real videos or real life shows are extremely popular. Not that pre-produced content isn't, but there's just something about TikTok and Instagram lives and Facebook lives where people are flocking to see authentic, real people. And so it just shows that we as pastors or leaders in the church, we're not perfect. We sometimes mess up. My encouragement is that, you know, whether you have a church of 100 people or 10,000 people, just remind yourself that you're talking to one person. You know, it's typically one person behind a phone, or maybe a family that's behind a laptop that's attending that service. So there's this mode we get into when we're on stage and communicating versus when we're communicating like this. And so finding that balance, this week we didn't know which way to go, so we went back on stage just to see how does this feel for our community. But at the same time, Pastor Craig did a midweek devotional where he was sitting on a chair and it was more intimate. So we're trying multiple things. I think the people just want to hear from us. If you mess up, don't worry about it, just keep at it and you'll get better at it. And if you want to practice those Instagram lives or whatever platform you're on, Facebook lives, just do a devotional every day. By the end of the week, you'll get better at it. It just, the more reps you have, the more chances you have to get better.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's excellent insight, Alan. I think one thing I was just going to comment too from our experience, because we did our first one this last Sunday. I think there's lots of grace from everybody in our church families right now, because everybody knows this is new. And so it's like, if we just kind of relax and are authentic and have fun with it, I think people are not expecting this perfect show and this perfect thing put together. I think there's this, you know, there's just, and then you just build on it week after week. So we came away from this week and we said, okay, what can we do better next week? And we're just starting to build it incrementally. So I think everyone can take confidence in that people are not looking for a perfect show. They want to see their pastors, and they want to feel connected to their church family. And so let me just check in, Finu. I just wanted to double check which direction you thought you might want to go now. I know there's been a number of questions, or if there was anything else major you wanted to make sure we got Alan to address. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are asking, and it's in the questions as well, so that it'll sort of help us out when we get to the questions. Alan, how do we follow up, bro? How do we follow up? Like on the online platform, by the way, guys, which I'm trying to set something up right now. So at 2:00, everyone that's on this call can jump over to this link and see what I'm talking about. But, you know, on your platform, there's an option, you know, to say, hey, I want to raise my hand for salvation. I want prayer. What do your volunteers do when the service is done? Like, what is that follow-up pipeline? Like, where do they go? Do they go in and I want you to be as sort of practical as possible. Like, do they go in an Excel spreadsheet? Do we call them one by one? Do we send a mass email out? Like, what happens after the online service is done?
Yeah. So we have different volunteer teams. So we have what we call the host team, and their responsibility is to service. Once the service is done, our host team leader, so say it's a group, I saw a question, how many people you need on a team to run the service effectively. Honestly, it's a tricky question because it depends on the number of live prayer requests you get. Because in main chat, if your chat is flying, it's okay to just have 2 people because the community is having the conversation anyways. Your volunteers will have a label next to their name that says host. So you don't want to fill the chat with just hosts, because then it would look like you don't have any guests. So you just manage that. And if you have extra people, you just tell them to wait behind. And so when I say tell them to wait behind on the Church Online platform, the guests see one view. If you are signed on as a volunteer, you have a completely different looking volunteer interface. So the video gets tiny. There's a volunteer private chat right next to the main guest chat. So imagine if it's us here, the 6 of us, or the 7, including KC. It's the 7 of us that's serving at the service. We have our own private chat where I can say, hey, Pastor Brendan, there's that prayer request. I don't know how to do this. Can you handle it? And then I can transition that to you, or we can talk privately. So volunteers within the service have the option to talk amongst themselves in a private chat. Once the service is done, anybody, the way we've set it up is when you give your life to Christ, there's a link that our team will provide. That link is connected to a form. It's a simple form. You can use FormStack to make it or whatever you want. And you create that form, and we simply ask for name and email address. And the reason we do that is because once we get that name and email address in the online world, that's considered like gold, because now they've given you the permission to talk to them. The way this started for us was there's a service here in the US called Redbox, where you can rent movies from this little box like thing in front of our Walmarts and stuff like that. And I got an email years ago from Redbox saying, hey, congratulations, it's been 2 years since you rented your first DVD from us. All of a sudden, like, bells started going on in my head, because I knew they obviously made a note of my first time when I rented that DVD. So in the same way, you know, bring that same concept to us. If someone gives their life to Christ right now, it triggers this, and they fill out the form. That form has a date and time stamp on it. You can then create a drip campaign. When I say drip campaign, it's like a series of emails. You would need a CRM. We use this platform called HubSpot. You can also use MailChimp. We moved from MailChimp to HubSpot as our email addresses grew. And so in HubSpot, I've automatically set up a series of emails to go out to that person in certain time frame. So as soon as they submit that form, I'll say, congratulations, thank you so much. Here's a link to a Bible. Here's how you can find our groups. 3 days later, they'll get another email saying, how are you doing? It's been 3 days. Can I pray with you? Again, I picture this as if I had seen this person face to face, how would I communicate to them, and how often would I communicate? And that's how I designed my emails. And so on the 7th day, I say, hey, it was 7 days ago you joined us at church. Remember, there's a service starting right now. We'd love for you to join us. So take that and multiply it into any different types of communication channels you want to create. Now, those are automated, but they're written in such a way that's personal. You don't have to automate it if you don't have that much of an influx of names and email addresses. You can also send a weekly email. You can send, again, that devotional content. You can package it, put it into your email, and send it. So it feels like a low touch versus in the physical environment is more of a high touch. But from the guest or your attendees perspective, they're hearing from you. So you add the service, the emails, the social media, the text messages or telephone calls. That's 5 touches that they're getting from you in a week, which feels probably more than what they're used to. So you can have a volunteer team that's, again, if they respond to that email saying, yes, I do have a prayer request, we now have a team that focuses only on email prayer requests. So again, you can create opportunities for people to serve no matter where they are in whichever capacity they are comfortable in.
Excellent. That's really good. All right, I just want to make sure I'm getting good direction here. Finu, did you want to look at the time? Did you want to get started?
Let's go to Q&A. We've got a ton of questions. So again, those of you that are watching us right now on Facebook, just comment under the Facebook video, and we'll try to take those questions as well. So yeah, we've got a lot. Let's see. What's the, so many questions.
Finu, real quick, I just got to shout out Pastor Tony Soldano. When I stepped into ministry for the first time, this is like 12 years ago, he encouraged me more than even he realizes it. So Pastor Tony, thank you so much. I love you. Sorry, I had to say that.
Pastor Tony, from all people,
I can't ignore him when he's
church.
online.
That's my pastor. He's online. He's asking questions. Okay, you know what? You gave him a shout out, so let's ask his questions. What would you say are the best, most stable platforms, and should we shorten our services, which I think you sort of answered already?
Yeah, I think the platforms, the way I've been thinking about it, because we have services on the Church Online platform, Facebook, YouTube. There's a platform for gamers. If you have young people or whoever in your community that are strong gamers, there's a platform called Twitch, which is incredible. That's another opportunity. We used to do services on Instagram, and they kind of shut us down because we were kind of we're doing it in a way we weren't supposed to do it, I guess. Not breaking any rules, but we were manipulating the system. So we're not doing that anymore. But the way I look at it is Facebook, YouTube.
Anything for the gospel, bro. Anything for the gospel.
Anything short of sin is a
Anything
lie.
short of sin. Just don't sin.
Yeah, just don't sin. So Facebook, YouTube, and all of those platforms, I view it as we're going to where the people are. So those are great platforms, but they're not created for church. So that's why we do it there, but we also have the Church Online platform, which is where we're inviting people to come to us. But it's a platform that's created by a church for a church. So there's obviously parts to it that are not there in Facebook or YouTube or anything like that. And
just so you know, Alan, what I did while you were talking was I set up a quote unquote fake service for everyone here.
Oh, great.
So it's gonna go live at 2 p.m. I'll post it in the notes in the chat so everyone can click on it and really look at what we're talking about. And I'm on the back end, Alan, so I'll do a screen share so everyone that's on the video can see what the back end looks like as well. Pastor Alan, you mentioned about tracking attendees. Do you have a way of telling what percentage of your population are returning versus new people?
Yeah, so the Church Online platform offers you metrics as well as Google Analytics. So whatever site, whatever platform you have, you're going to have more analytics than you actually need. And so we are constantly tweaking what makes sense in our context. And so it's not as apples to apples as how you would count physical attendance, because it really is different. And so you've got to just make sure you're approaching it differently, because there are people there's some churches that say every person that's there for 30 minutes, like at the 30-minute mark, that's when I'm going to count. I'm going to count peak number of people. There are pros and cons for all of these. So my encouragement is just to identify which one makes sense to you and your church. And then in Google, you do have the ability to see return attendees. So you can see first-time visits, you can see organic. If you're running digital ads, you can separate those two audiences as well. You can see country, city, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, I think I have a question related to that. I was talking to a friend of mine who I think is on the call as well. He has multiple campuses across the city of Toronto. And, he made a comment and said, hey, we had 2,000 people on Wednesday on Facebook watching, right? So I think one of the challenges, Alan, we're having is, what does that actually mean? Like I could watch for 2 minutes and I'll be one of the 2,000, but I didn't engage in the whole service. Like, it's like saying, having an hour and a half service in a physical building. And when you get up to preach, 50 people get up and walk. Can you just imagine that? And it's like, that happens online. How do we know? Here's my question. How do we know, or can we know, how many people have stayed engaged for the duration of the service, or say 75% of the service? So we get a true sense of so many people came to church today, as opposed to, so many people checked out the service at some point.
Yeah, and that's that tension we have of we want to be able to bring it into the world we're used to. And this is just a different world, because even on Facebook, for example, if you're watching this Facebook Live video and we go back and we try to look at the metrics, there may be somebody listening right now and they're like, okay, wait, something came up, I've got to cut it now. And they may come back and watch it tomorrow. And so people have the ability to go in and come out and consume content as much as possible. So I try to look at the whole spectrum. I try to look at the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom of the funnel. So you're looking at like anybody that even saw my screen or saw this video, because that tells me that's how effective my people are sharing and getting the word out. Because maybe they don't come the first time, but maybe the third or fourth time they will. All the way down to how many people are part of my small groups, how many people are part of giving, are people volunteering. That to me kind of defines the core. So the top all the way to the bottom and anything in between, I would say look at all of it, because if you're just looking at one, you're missing the whole picture. It's just hard to say, how many stayed through, because and again, we're kind of fooling ourselves if we think that just because someone doesn't walk out while we're preaching, they're engaged. They could be thinking about anything else. It's just online. They have the ability to hit that red X button and leave. Physically, they're texting their friends or whatever, and they're not paying any attention. So again, both sides, it's not 100%, but if you can get multiple perspectives, that gives you the whole picture, rather than just saying, oh my gosh, I had 1 million impressions on Facebook, so 1 million people came. No, that was impressions. well, what's the 30-second view? What's the 1-minute view? How many next steps did people take? How many questions did people ask? And you kind of work, speaking about this live format, so kind of take that whole perspective to give you a holistic view.
I love this. I love where this is going. I want to dig a little deeper. So here's the question, Alan. How do we as pastors and leaders encourage? So, okay, I'm an old school kind of preacher. I like feedback, right? So if I'm preaching, I want like, amen, hallelujah. I'm like, and I'll say this all the time. And I'm like, why do I say this, right? I'm like, are you getting this? Are you getting this? And it's like, because basically what I'm saying is I need to know you guys are tracking with me, okay? So now all of a sudden, again, imagine what's happening. Like my home church, Tony Soldano, All People's Church, right? Last week they had service and they had a couple of hundred people. I mean, attendance was low, obviously, but a couple of hundred people come. This Sunday, there's no one in the room. So so the question is, what do we say in our sermons, in our transitions and stuff to get people to respond? Like how do you make people get on the keyboard, on their phone or on the keyboard and type something, amen, or I love that, pastor, or that spoke to me, or that, how do you get that response? Or should you even expect to?
I think it's okay to ask. I think it's great, especially if the church is used to it and they enjoy it, because it's not just in that example, it's not just the pastor or the person on stage that's missing it. It's the whole church that's missing it. Mm-hmm. The community knows that me and my sister together, we're going to say amen. And we're the loudest ones in church. Well, now nobody can hear us. And so what do we do? So they're feeling, and I think it's us understanding that it's not just the pastors who are feeling this change, but it's our community that's feeling this change as well. And so maybe for some of you, it is saying, hey, I know that I love hearing your responses. So in the chat, even if it's tricky for you and sometimes you're typing the wrong thing, it's okay. Just get in chat. If you're on Facebook or even on the Church Online platform, you've got the heart button. I want to see those hearts. Or you can ask a question saying, hey, how many of you, have been to this restaurant, whatever the question might be. And so again, it depends on you as a pastor. If you're watching that chat, and depending on that, I will tell you this, it is tough to preach to a camera lens. There's no way around it. There's something, for me personally, it's so good when you have worship music that's happening and you kind of walk on stage and you're embracing that moment, leaning into that moment, versus here, you could have your worship team record on a separate day, and essentially you're walking on stage, you've got your camera crew, and they're like, yeah, pastor, are you ready? Yes, you're live. And it's just silence, and you're like, okay, hold on, let me get into this, And so it is what it is. It's the new norm for us and for our community. So I think it's trusting God with the anointing that he's placed on us, and knowing that even though we feel limited in this moment, he's not. And he can bring healing through those camera lenses. I mean, television ministry, if you think about this, television ministry has been going on for years. Television pastors have been preaching and doing that. I mean, some of them have had audiences, but a lot of them just spoke to a camera lens. And so right. It's not too different than that. And it's just leaning into that, and then rewatch the service. Go back as the communicator, go back and watch your service, and you, like Pastor Brendan said, find out, what could I have communicated better? Okay, I need to make eye contact with that camera lens because it looked like I was looking somewhere else. So I need to do that better. And so as communicators, we can tweak our communication. Even now in the Zoom call, I'm tempted to look at the screens and look at faces, but if I'm looking at the screen, I'm not looking at the lens. You see, even that, it's like, hey, Finu, how are you doing? Hey, Finu, how are you doing? There's a difference when you make those subtle changes. And so trying to just be sensitive to those moments and rewatching your content so that you can get better for the following weeks.
Okay, so I've got a bunch of questions about the online platform. So friends, listen, if you're on, if you can, please continue to stay on with us. We're going to go just a few minutes here over just to get through these questions. But what I've done in the meantime, I've just posted a link in the chat. If you're not seeing the chat, if you're calling in, the link is very simple. It's passiontoreach.online.church, and you'll see a live service playing. This is from, I just pulled a message I preached at All People's Church a while back. It's a pre-recorded message. So remember, you could record and live stream. This is the beauty of it, right? You can pre-record your entire service before Sunday, but for your people, it's being live streamed. So if you go on that site right now, sign into chat. And what I'm going to do, Alan, as we're answering questions still, is I'm going to screenshot or share screen for the back end that I'm seeing as people chat. So that way you can see, those of you on this video call, and because it's being recorded, can see what it looks like on the back end. So Alan, a couple of questions here about the online platform. Can we stream? I'm just going to ask you a few and then you can answer. Can we stream from Facebook Live? Is that possible? And how many volunteers do you typically need for a service? So generally, how many people are on the chat boxes and, engaging with people? And also, I think there was a question about, how do you gather feedback? So I think this is the chat box. I don't know if there's another way for people to offer feedback, because you know what happens? All of us know this. When we walk out of church on Sunday, right? People are like, oh, that was a great message, or Pastor, I didn't understand that. Or you have these sort of conversations with people where you get feedback on how they liked it or didn't like the service or what they thought about it. Is there a way on Church Online to be able to do that after the service is over?
So first question was the streaming. I'm not sure if you can do Facebook Live streamed into this platform. Typically, you have to find your own streaming provider. And again, something we didn't cover is if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you got to be careful about worship music and CCLI licensing. There's a possibility that they'll shut you down if it sounds like a song that belongs to somebody else. That's happened to us on Facebook, even while we, oh, there we go. Even while we,
so as we're answering questions, you can look at it.
Yep. Even while we were playing our own songs, they flagged us because they didn't know about that. With regards to how many people in chat, I would say 1:50 or 1:100. Again, it depends on how many live prayer moments you get. So let's see if I can get out of this. I think you have to, there's live prayer. So,
yep. So you see,
I just clicked the live prayer button.
Yep. So I just accepted that. And so now I have a private chat with Alan here.
Yep. This is a live prayer. So if you get 5 of this at one time, it's going to be tricky for your team if you have only one person to respond to individually all of those 5 things. Now you could shuffle back and forth between those, but you want to pray for them too. And so we don't just say, hey, thanks for your prayer request, we'll pray for you. We actually type out the prayer. We type out, dear Jesus, thank you for my brother, and I pray that you would bless them, whatever the prayer request is. And so that's how we would do that. Last question. What was the last question you had asked?
Sorry, I lost it myself here. Yeah, I lost the question. Sorry.
Platform, number of people in chat.
Yeah, number of people in chat. Is it possible to embed online.church framework onto our church website?
I believe, I don't know.
Okay. So we can get back to people on that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so from the panelists, any questions that we haven't? There is a question here about, I think this is more of a comment about online giving. So we've been helping churches with this. There's PushPay is a great option, but PushPay is pretty expensive, frankly speaking. I've been on the phone with all these guys over the last couple of days. There's PushPay, there's Tightly, and there's Subsplash. Passion to Reach Ministries, we use Tightly. It works pretty well, but they charge you $19 US a month for text to give. Whereas Subsplash, they don't charge you for text to give. So there is no cost with Subsplash other than obviously everyone charges you 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction, right? So I'm not telling you to go with one or the other, but there was just a comment on it. So you guys can Google it, do your research. Again, if you need to reach out to us, reply to the email I send out, and then you can, ask me for my opinion. I can give you the information I have. On the panel, any other questions before we end the call?
None on my side.
No, good. We didn't really talk about this, Alan, but we said we would talk about what metrics, or how do you do a review? Do you guys do a Sunday review after service is done, or after the Sunday is done? And what do you generally look at? Like, what are you measuring? Of course, you can measure a million things, but what are you really looking for? So you can assess how it went.
Yeah, because we have services daily, we typically in a normal world, we have what we use this software called Tableau. It's all the metrics that we collect, we visualize it on Tableau. And so that's how we would do it. Right now, we're doing a lot of different things. We've just opened up Google Sheets, and we're tracking things per week. Because we have 90 services, it's all through the week. We're updating it on Saturday and Sunday. We're updating it almost like every hour, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, through the week, we're doing it just at the top of the morning. And we're looking at things like, because we run digital advertising as well. So we're looking at total advertising, total organic. Organic is people that came either on their own or not through an ad. We look at number of salvations. We look at number of new email addresses we've got. And then we break down the salvations, especially during the Saturday, Sunday services, because those are our peak, because we want to know how many. And then if there's something that we see a metric that's like, oh, that's interesting, I want to find out more, then we go dive deep into it in a separate platform, like either Google Analytics or wherever, to learn more about that.
Okay.
But right now, we're just keeping it, in this season, we're just keeping it really high level. How many people are showing up? What are the top countries, top cities, salvation, new email addresses, and obviously giving, I'm tracking separately.
There was actually a question just literally came in right now. How do you acknowledge and thank online donors? What do you do?
So the way our church is set up is as a campus pastor, when you give to Life.Church, you have to pick one of our locations to give. And so whenever someone gives to Church Online, I have certain thresholds that I get pinged based on the size of the gift, but I also have a list of every person that's giving, and we regularly communicate through email. And if it's just based on who they are, I make sure that I have their cell phone number if it's available, and text them, thank them. So it just depends on whatever your regular flow is, you can leverage that here in this online setting as well.
Perfect. I want to show one more thing before we end the call. If you guys can, you can all see my screen, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it says, so under moments, there's this thing where you can post a salvation call. This is so cool. I love this. So when I hit post now, if somebody that's watching can go on the actual front end and raise their hand. So there's an option to raise your hand. So this would be when, if the pastor is saying, hey, if you want to give your life to Christ. So if someone could do that, I just want you to see how it pops up. No, sorry, you guys are raising your hand on Zoom. No. On the front end of the, so it's passion to reach .online.church. So you got to have a different browser. If you're on your phone, you probably can't do it. So let me see. Did someone do that?
I just did it.
Alan, it didn't pop up here. Am I doing something wrong?
I had to.
Hold on. I tried.
No, you know what? That's.
Oh, right here. Moses just made a commitment to has just committed their life to Christ and would like to pray with someone. Look at that. So you hit accept. Again, opens up. This is a private chat now, and I say, "Hey, hi Moses. Great decision. Here's a resource to know more," right? Whatever. So hopefully you have a PDF or something that you've created to say, here's the first steps if you make a commitment to Christ. Alan, any other best practices on when someone says they want to get saved? What do you guys usually say?
Obviously, we want you to come back to church, get a Bible. We give the YouVersion Bible app, the link to YouVersion Bible app away, and you can recommend, if your church has a Bible plan in the Bible app, you can always recommend that. Or if there's just a general new believers Bible plan that you want to give them, and then same, just like this, like if here's my number, or here's our church's number, or my email address. If you have any questions during the week, I'd love to be available for you. So again, people would think that because now we're online, there's no way I can get to my pastor. Try and break that perspective as many times as possible. So even during the service, I've even at church online, I've actually given my phone number away saying, hey, this week, text me. If you've got something that I can be praying with you about, text me. And of course, text blows up, but still, it just breaks the idea that my pastor cannot be reached because he's online. No, I'm even more available now because we're online. So I think as many times as you can break that perspective or that thought process, leverage it.
Is that one of the benefits of a pre-recorded service, Alan, where let's say, I'm preaching right now, but I'm responding to these people, right? Mm-hmm. Is that best practice, or do you not recommend that?
Like any live production, it gets crazier when it's live. Right. And it just helps you, if you have the ability to separate the two. It's just, for me, I'm not thinking of that many things. And if something goes on or something goes wrong, if there's a glitch or whatever, then we're all scrambling. You're able to take care of different things at certain times. So we filmed for this weekend, we filmed on Wednesday. And so now we've got the tech team and the ministry team all getting geared up for tomorrow and day after tomorrow, all of our peak services. So we're able to just compartmentalize and focus on the things that need to be focused. But live is good too. So if there's a pastor that wants to see the chat and see the comments, you may have a TV in front of you with that. Go for it. Leverage that moment. If it's one service, then you can maximize that one service. So I think just tweak. Don't be afraid of making changes as the weeks pass by.
Yeah. And another idea, guys, is you could pre-record your service. And actually, I shouldn't speak about this. Alan, you tell me. Is it possible to pre-record the service and then have a live host on the day of?
Yes. That's what you're doing right now.
Okay. No. On video. Like, is there a way to switch back and forth to go live and then go? Like, it's almost like, here's what I'm thinking on the back end. So you have one service that starts at 10 a.m. 9:45, 10 a.m. And then the second service that's recorded starts at 10:15. So you have 15 minutes of live before the next one just automatically starts off.
Yes, you can. Yeah. You can, if you're doing it all as one, then it's technically a live service because you're switching, like, hey, thanks for joining us. Let's watch this week's message. And then you're playing the pre-recorded. So that's one way. Or you do two separate events. You do a pre-service event that's live, that's 15 minutes, that's welcoming everyone. That's a great idea. You can give people, so that's less stressful. It's just maybe in front of your laptop, and then say, all right, next service starts in 5 minutes. Go get your coffee or water or whatever you want. And then we'll be back in 5 minutes. That's when service starts. And then boom, the pre-produced service starts. But your hosts are live, like in chat though. Yeah.
Right. Okay, perfect. So hopefully that helps. Sorry we went over time, but honestly, there's so much. There's still questions coming in, but I wanna honor time. So again, guys, everyone that's on this call, we will email you a recording of this. Reply to that email if you would like us to help you. Sometimes we can help. Sometimes we'll just refer you to somebody else that can help. But I just want to put a plug in here for Missional Media Services. Anything to do with websites, social media, graphic design, setting up online church, setting up online giving, we can help with many of those things. So reach out to us if you need the help. And we're here for you. And can I also say this to everyone, that we're in this together. We're all learning. We're all figuring this out. So there's no shame in asking questions, in reaching out, in messing up and figuring it out, because that's literally where all of us are at. So just be bold and praying for incredible Sunday services across wherever you're calling in from or watching this from. And may God move through audio, video, Facebook, YouTube, church online, whatever the means may be. So Alan, thank you. Appreciate you.
Finu, can I cut in for a second, Finu, just before you log off?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to give a extra shout out because just thank you, Finu, for putting this on. And I just want to encourage everyone watching this with Finu's been mentioning missional media services. I've known Finu for a number of years now, and they do as good of a job as anybody I've seen of partnering with churches to help them do ministry effectively. So, you know, they've got a track record, they've got a history, and it's always good to get help. So I know many of you on the call are probably familiar with what they do already, but I just want to give that extra pop, and maybe even a little stronger than Finu could, because it might sound a little weird, but I just want to give a pop for what they do, that if you kind of got questions, track them down. Because a lot of us pastors, we're busy this week talking to people, trying to figure things out. What Finu spent this week figuring out solutions for churches. I mean, that's what his job is, and that's what his passion is. So I'd really encourage you in that. And I also want to say, I'm going to throw in the comments, I got permission from Finu to do this. I've spent time this week working on a like a resource kind of page online. It's just a document. It's through our fellowship of churches, but it's kind of for everybody. And we're up close to 50 links now that cover everything from articles, online giving, what kind of video cameras to buy. We're not giving you the information, we're just directing you, and we're building it daily. So I just asked Finu for permission to throw that out there. Hopefully that can be a help to anybody. It just gives you resources. But I just want to, again, give a shout for missional media. I know they're going to continue to do things, but just connect with these guys if you need help. And I'm just going to throw that link right now.
Thanks, Brandon. And just so you all know, we're going to do multiple Zooms over the next couple of weeks. We've got confirmation already from Chad Zolo, who's the online pastor at Elevation Church. They do e-groups in an amazing way. So he's going to come in and talk to us. So just look out for more Zoom calls just to equip and pour into you guys. Alan, thank you. Appreciate you so much. Love what you guys are doing. And God bless you guys. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
God bless you. Thank you.
Bye.